The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. You don't need the perfect plan, the perfect income, or the perfect age. The only poverty that truly traps a man is poverty of thought. Chains are forged, not formed from iron, but from the excuses and doubts we nurture in silence. Think like the rich and break those chains forever. To think like the rich is to see possibility where others see walls, to hear opportunity where others hear silence. Change your thinking and your world changes. If you want to succeed, if you truly want to build wealth and live a life of financial freedom, the very first thing you need to understand is this. Excuses are the language of failure. They are the fog that clouds your vision, the chains that keep you stuck where you are, and the invisible force that stops you from moving forward. I've seen it time and again, people so eager to explain why they can't rather than focusing on how they can. And here's the hard truth: excuses never build wealth, but action always does. There's an old saying that goes, if you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. Think about that for a moment. It's not just a clever phrase, it's a powerful mirror reflecting your choices. Every day you have a choice. You can either spend your energy justifying why you can't, or you can direct that same energy into discovering how you can. When you cut out excuses, something incredible happens. Your path becomes clear. The clutter disappears, and you start to see possibilities where once there were obstacles. You see, excuses don't just steal your time, they steal your power. Every excuse is like a brick in a wall separating you from your dreams. But the bricks aren't permanent. You can dismantle that wall one brick at a time by replacing excuses with action. The first brick might be the hardest to remove: fear, uncertainty, self-doubt, but once you start, momentum builds. That momentum creates clarity and confidence. Here's the deeper secret. Excuses are often rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. And fear can be a powerful opponent, but it's not invincible. When you face it and say, I will do this despite my fear, you claim victory over the one thing that holds so many people back. Financial success isn't about having no fear. It's about having the courage to act in spite of fear. Another truth I've learned is that excuses often come from comparing yourself to others. They have more experience, more money, better opportunities. But comparing yourself to someone else is like trying to run your race in their shoes. It just doesn't fit. The only person you should compare yourself to is the person you were yesterday. Are you doing better today? Are you making progress? That's the question that matters, not the stories you tell yourself about why you're not as far along as someone else. Let me be clear. Cutting out excuses doesn't mean life gets easier overnight. Challenges will come. Setbacks will happen. But when you stop making excuses, you gain something far more valuable: the ability to respond. You stop being a victim of circumstance and start being the architect of your future. You learn that every problem has a solution, and your job is to find it, not to complain about the problem. When you free yourself from excuses, you free your energy to do the work that builds wealth. You focus on creating, investing, learning, and growing. That energy that was once wasted on justifications and blame can now fuel your ambitions. The result? You become unstoppable. Cut the excuses, clear the path, and watch how your life changes. You must understand this fundamental truth. Wealth is not determined by how much you make, but by how much you keep. This is the difference that separates those who merely earn a paycheck from those who build lasting financial freedom. It's a lesson I learned early on, and it shaped the course of my life. I knew men who earned far more than I ever did, but found themselves broke at the end of every month. And I knew others with modest incomes who managed to grow their savings and build wealth over time. The secret was simple living on less than they earned. This principle may seem obvious, yet it remains the single most ignored rule in personal finance. The world bombards us with messages of instant gratification. Buy the newest car, upgrade your phone every year, live a lifestyle beyond your means. Many people fall prey to these temptations and convince themselves that a higher income will fix their problems. But it never does not. if they don't change their spending habits. If you can't manage $1,000 wisely, having $1 million won't save you. Money has a way of slipping through careless hands, and no matter how much you earn, if you don't master the discipline of controlling your expenses, you will never build lasting wealth. I've met people who earn millions yet live paycheck to paycheck, burdened by debt and financial stress. On the other hand, I've met those who live simply, saved consistently, and created security and freedom over decades. Think about this. Your income is like a river flowing into a reservoir. If your expenses are the dam controlling the flow of money out of your hands, you can store that water for times of drought. But if you let the dam leak through unnecessary spending, impulse buying, or poor money management, your reservoir will dry up no matter how full the river flows. It's not about how much water comes in, but how much you can hold and preserve. Living on less than you earn is the cornerstone of financial independence. It requires discipline, humility, and foresight. It means making choices, sometimes tough ones, about what you truly need versus what you want. It means resisting the urge to keep up with others or impress the world. It means valuing your future self more than momentary pleasures. I remember a time when I earned very little. I was broke, deeply in debt, and had no clear plan. But I made a decision to live on less than I earned, even if that meant cutting back on simple luxuries. I stopped spending money on things that didn't add value to my life. I learned to say no to unnecessary expenses. It wasn't glamorous, but it was powerful. That small discipline built the foundation for my financial future. Wealthy people master their spending first, regardless of income. They create budgets, track expenses, and set limits. They understand the power of compound savings. When you consistently save even a small percentage of your income, you build a habit that compounds into wealth over time. It's not the big windfalls that make you rich. It's the small, consistent actions done daily. This is why the concept of budgeting isn't a punishment. It's freedom. It gives you control over your money instead of letting money control you. When you know where every dollar is going, you can make intentional choices aligned with your goals. This clarity brings peace of mind, reduces anxiety, and empowers you to make smarter decisions. Another important aspect of living below your means is preparing for the unexpected. Life will throw challenges your way: medical bills, job loss, emergencies. If you have not developed the habit of spending less than you earn, these challenges become crises. But if you have built a buffer through prudent spending and saving, you can weather storms without derailing your progress. The temptation to spend more as income grows is real and powerful. It's called lifestyle inflation, and it's the silent killer of wealth. When your salary increases, many feel compelled to upgrade their lifestyle: proportionally bigger house, fancier car, more vacations. But this cycle can trap you in a constant race to maintain appearances, never truly gaining ground. Instead, think of each raise, bonus, or new source of income as an opportunity. Don't spend it all. Keep your living expenses steady or only increase them slightly, and direct the rest towards saving and investing. This simple mindset shift can accelerate your path to wealth far more than chasing higher income alone. The greatest wealth is not measured by how much you earn, but by how much you save and reinvest. It's the power of delayed gratification and consistent habits that move you toward financial freedom. I encourage you to ask yourself, are you living within your means? Are you spending more than you earn? If so, the sooner you change this behavior, the better your financial future will be. Start by tracking your spending honestly. Write down every dollar you spend for a month. You'll be surprised at where your money goes. Then create a budget that allows you to live comfortably but under your means. Set a target to save a fixed percentage, no matter how small of your income each month. Over time, increase this percentage as your discipline grows. Remember, wealth is not about impressing others or accumulating things. It's about freedom, the freedom to make choices without financial stress, the freedom to pursue your passions, and the freedom to leave a legacy. Living on less than you earn is the foundation of that freedom. So, commit today to master this principle. Control your spending, prioritize saving, and reject the culture of immediate gratification. When you do, you will lay the groundwork for a life of abundance and peace. It's a decision only you can make, and it will be the most important decision on your path to financial success. I want you to think about something that's true for every person on this planet. You cannot work for money forever. It's a simple statement, but one that carries profound meaning. When I was young, I believed that working hard, getting a steady job, and climbing the ladder was the way to financial security. That's what most of us are taught. You can only work so many hours in a day, and the truth is, if you depend solely on your job to make money, you will always be limited by the amount of time you can give. I want to share something I learned early in my journey, and it's a lesson that changed the way I view money and success. A job will give you a living. It pays the bills, puts food on the table, and keeps a roof over your head, but it won't make you wealthy. Wealth is built not by how many hours you work, but by how smartly your money works for you. The difference between earning a living and building wealth is the difference between working for money and making money work for you. Imagine this. If you only have your job as your source of income, your earning potential is capped. Your paycheck depends on your hours, your employer, and the economy. You become a slave to the clock, trading your precious time for money. But time is limited, and once it's gone, you can't get it back. So if you want financial freedom, if you want to build true wealth, you must shift your thinking and your strategy. You must learn to make your money work harder than you do. Now, this doesn't mean quitting your job tomorrow without a plan. It means starting today to build assets, things that earn money even when you're not working. Assets might be investments, rental properties, a business, or intellectual property like books or courses. The key is to create income streams that don't require you to be physically present all the time. This is what true financial success looks like. I remember when I first understood this concept, it felt like a door opening. I realized that if I kept trading time for money, I would be stuck. There's only so many hours in a week, and at some point you want to enjoy the fruits of your labor, not just work harder for more bills. So, I began investing in knowledge, learning about finance, business, and investing. I started small, putting aside money each month to buy books and attend seminars. Then I took steps to create assets that generated income beyond my paycheck. There's a story of a man I met who worked as a factory worker. He was tired, worn out from long shifts, but he was smart. He started buying shares in a small company and reinvesting his dividends. Over years, those dividends grew, and he built a side income that eventually surpassed his factory wages. He didn't need to work harder or longer. He just made his money work smarter. That's the power of assets. If you don't build assets, you'll be trading time for money all your life. And there's no shame in that, it's honest work. But if your goal is financial freedom, to live life on your terms, you must start building that other source of income. The sooner you begin, the more time your money has to grow. Remember, time is your greatest ally in building wealth. The magic of compound interest, the growth of investments, the expansion of businesses all take time to flourish. The shift from working for money to making money work for you also changes your mindset. Instead of focusing on earning more to spend more, you begin focusing on investing and saving to build a foundation for the future. You learn discipline, patience, and long-term thinking. You start asking different questions like, how can I create value that lasts? How can I put my money to work to generate income in my sleep? Many people are afraid to invest because they fear losing money. But the biggest risk is not investing at all. Inflation eats away at your savings. And if your money is not growing, it's losing value. Smart investing isn't about gambling. It's about learning, planning, and taking calculated risks. It's about knowing your goals and building a portfolio of assets that suits your life and risk tolerance. The road to financial independence is not about luck. It's about decisions. It's about deciding today to start building assets, even if it's just a small step. Open that savings account, buy that book on investing, set up a retirement plan, start a side business, or invest in yourself through education. These are the bricks you lay in building your financial house. When your money starts to earn more than you do, you experience a profound shift. Suddenly, you're no longer chained to the clock. You have freedom to spend time with family, to pursue passions, to give back, and to live life on your terms. This is the promise of financial success. So remember, your job gives you a living. But if you want wealth, you must learn to make money work for you. Trade time for money no longer. Build assets that generate income without your constant presence. Start today, be patient, be disciplined, and watch how your life transforms. You see, too many people believe that the answer to financial security is simply to save. They think if they tuck their money under the mattress or let it sit quietly in a bank account, they're being wise. But let me tell you, money that sits still loses value. That's the truth of it. Inflation eats away at its power year after year. And soon, what could have bought you a basket of goods today might barely buy you half a basket tomorrow. Saving is important, yes, but saving alone will not make you wealthy. The real magic begins when you decide not just to save, but to grow your money. When I was younger, I too believed that saving was enough. I thought that if I could just build a little pile, I'd be secure. But then I met people who earned less than I did, who never had a huge pile of savings, but who were financially free. Why? Because they learned to put their money to work. They understood that every dollar is like a little employee. And as with any employee, the question is it working? Or is it sitting idle? Idle money is like a lazy worker. It contributes nothing, and worse, it costs you over time. But money that's invested wisely becomes productive, generates returns, and multiplies quietly while you sleep. I remember a conversation I had with my mentor long ago. He asked me, if you had a business, would you hire someone and pay them just to sit around doing nothing? I laughed, of course not. He smiled and said, yet that's what you're doing with your money. You're paying it to sit idle when it could be producing. That conversation changed everything for me. I stopped seeing money as something to hoard and started seeing it as something to mobilize. And here's where the real shift in mindset happens. Don't hoard strategize. Don't just accumulate, allocate. Your dollars should have assignments. They should be working in fields where they can grow crops that feed you for years to come. I learned to look for things that appreciate, that produce, that provide returns. It might be a piece of real estate that generates rental income. It might be a business that pays dividends. It might be a skill that multiplies my ability to earn. Whatever it is, it must have the potential to grow, because only growing money leads to true wealth. Now, I'm not saying take reckless risks. No, wealth is not built on wild gambles. It's built on thoughtful, intentional action. Study where your money goes. Learn about the fields you planted in. I read books on investing, talked to people wiser than me, and sought to understand the difference between an asset that grows and an illusion that fades. When you gain knowledge, you reduce risk. When you act on that knowledge, you create growth. Think of your money like seeds. A farmer doesn't just collect seeds and store them in a shed. What good would that do? Over time, the seeds would rot, lose their potential, and be of no use at all. A wise farmer plants them in fertile soil, waters them, tends to them, and patiently watches them grow. Your job is no different. Saving is gathering the seeds, but wealth comes from planting, nurturing, and harvesting. And if you keep doing that season after season, year after year, soon you'll have an orchard that feeds not just you, but generations to come. There's something else that happens when you focus on growing your money. You change how you think about work. You begin to realize that the goal isn't just to trade time for money. The goal is to create streams of income that don't require your constant labor. Money that earns money. That's when freedom begins. That's when choices open up. That's when you stop working for survival and start working for meaning. I've known people who never earned large salaries, but because they put their money to work wisely, they built quiet fortunes. And I've known others who made huge incomes, but let their money sit still, or worse, spend it all as fast as it came in. The difference was never the size of their paycheck, it was the size of their vision. It was their understanding that wealth is grown, not hoarded. And here's a practical truth. You don't need a fortune to start. Don't wait until you have thousands of dollars to begin investing or building assets. Start small, but start. I started with tiny amounts. A little invested in books to grow my mind. A little in tools that helped me build a business. A little in opportunities that paid small returns at first, but over time added up. The key is to begin and to keep at it, because small steps taken daily create massive change over time. And never forget, money that works multiplies. When you invest wisely, your dollars hire other dollars, and those dollars go out and work for you, and their earnings hire even more dollars. It's a chain reaction of growth, and it all starts with the decision to stop hoarding and start growing. That's how wealth is built. Not overnight, not through luck, but through steady, intentional action. Let every dollar you own have a job, and soon you'll find that your army of dollars is doing more for you than your two hands ever could. So today, ask yourself, is your money sitting idle, or is it working? Are you growing what you have, or are you just guarding it, watching it shrink? The answer you give yourself will determine whether you stay where you are or step onto the path toward real financial freedom. And remember, wealth isn't built by saving alone. It's built by putting your money to work, wisely and consistently, until one day you find that it's working harder than you ever did. Let me share something with you that changed the entire course of my life. Ignorance is the costliest debt of all. And I'm not talking about the kind of debt that shows up on a credit report or a bank statement. I'm talking about the silent debt, the one that robs you of opportunity, that keeps you spinning your wheels while others move ahead, that drains your potential before you even know it's missing. You see, what you don't know about money, about markets, about how wealth works, will cost you more in a lifetime than any loan or mortgage ever could. That's why I say this with such urgency. Financial literacy is not optional. It's a necessity. It's as critical as the food you eat or the air you breathe if you want to build a future of abundance. When I was a young man, I thought hard work alone was the key. And don't get me wrong, hard work is important. But I met men and women who worked just as hard, sometimes harder, and yet they never seemed to get ahead. I saw others who appeared to work less, but achieved far greater success. That puzzled me, until I realized that the difference wasn't in their effort, the difference was in their knowledge. The rich study money, they study markets, they study themselves, their habits, their strengths, their weaknesses. And because they understand these things, they make better decisions. They navigate challenges with clarity. They spot opportunities that others miss. Meanwhile, too many people stay entertained. They'll spend hours watching shows, scrolling through distractions, or gossiping about things that add no value to their lives. But ask them about compound interest, or tax strategies, or how to evaluate an investment, and you'll see a blank stare. And that blank stare, that gap in knowledge, is the most expensive thing they carry. You want to build wealth? Then start by building wisdom. And I don't mean you have to get a fancy degree or go back to school. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about personal education, the kind that happens when you pick up a book on finance instead of a magazine full of gossip. The kind that happens when you listen to a lecture on investing instead of another hit song on the radio. The kind that happens when you seek out a mentor, someone who's walked the path you want to walk. And you ask questions, you listen, you learn. That's where the seeds of wealth are planted in knowledge. Because once you know better, you can do better. Once you understand how money works, you can make it work for you. And when you don't, well, you work for it all your life. Trading your hours, your energy, your peace of mind for a paycheck that never quite seems to go far enough. I remember the first time I truly studied money. I don't mean just balancing a checkbook or figuring out how to pay a bill on time. I mean understanding the flow of money, how it grows, how it's taxed, how it's protected, how it's invested. I read, I listened, I asked, and slowly the fog lifted. I began to see where I'd been wasting not just money, but years. And once I saw it, I could change it. I learned to spot a good opportunity from a bad one. I learned how to protect my assets, how to plan ahead, how to multiply what I had. And the amazing thing, the more I learned, the more I realized how much more there was to learn. That's the wonderful thing about financial literacy at compounds. Just like wealth, every bit of knowledge builds on the last, until suddenly you're seeing with new eyes, thinking with a sharper mind, and moving with greater confidence. Now let's talk about action, because knowledge without action is like a library of books that no one reads useless. Don't just collect information. Use it, apply it, make it part of your daily life. Set aside time 10 minutes a day, if that's all you can spare to read about finance, to review your spending, to study an investment idea. Replace entertainment time with education time. Turn your commute into a classroom. Listen to an audiobook on investing. Watch a lecture on wealth building. Talk to someone who knows what you want to know. Make learning a habit, not a chore. Because every day that you learn, you're paying down that silent debt. And every day you choose ignorance, that debt grows. I'll tell you something else. The wealthiest people I've ever met never stop learning. They don't rest on what they know. They stay curious. They stay humble. They know that markets change, laws change, opportunities shift, and what worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. So they keep their minds sharp, their knowledge current, their skills growing, and that's why they stay ahead. That's why they build, while others struggle just to stay afloat. So let me leave you with this thought. The gap between where you are and where you want to be financially, it's filled with knowledge. And the only way across is to learn, to grow, to apply. Don't let ignorance be your most costly debt. Pay it down every day with study, with reflection, with action. Because the more you know, the freer you become. And in that freedom lies the true foundation of wealth. Let's talk about something most people don't give enough thought to, yet it shapes their entire financial future and the future of those who come after them. Daily habits. I want you to hear this clearly. Your daily habits either build your legacy or bury it. Every small decision, every repeated action, every pattern you reinforce is either constructing a foundation for something lasting or it's eroding your chance at leaving behind anything of value. See, wealth isn't just a number in the bank. It's not just about houses, cars, or luxuries. Wealth is a lifestyle of responsibility, generosity, and vision. And the legacy you leave is the sum of what you do daily, not what you hope for one day. I remember early in my career watching two kinds of people. One group always talked about what they would do when they finally had enough money. You've heard it, someday I'll save, someday I'll invest, someday I'll give back. But the truth is, someday is a code word for never. The other group though, and these were the people who went on to build real wealth, they worked daily at their habits. They didn't wait for the perfect moment. They didn't wait until they hit some magical income number. They started where they were with what they had and they built systems. They made saving automatic. They gave even if it was just a little. They read a page of a book each night. They reviewed their budget each week. Tiny things, but done daily, they became unstoppable. And over time, they created a legacy not just of money, but of discipline, of wisdom, of example. Ask yourself this, what example are you setting right now? When your children, your family, or the people who look up to you observe your life, what are they learning about money, about responsibility, about vision? Are they seeing someone who plans, who saves, who invests in their future? Or are they seeing someone who reacts, who spends without thinking, who lives paycheck to paycheck, always putting off the important things for later? Because I'll tell you this, they're watching. And even if you never leave behind a fortune, you are leaving behind a system, a culture, a way of thinking about money. And that can be worth more than any bank balance. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned was this. Don't just work for your needs, work for your legacy. When you only work for your needs, you'll do just enough to get by. You'll focus on the immediate, the bills, the groceries, the rent. But when you work for your legacy, you think bigger, you plan further ahead. You ask, what can I build that lasts beyond me? What habits today will create freedom tomorrow, not just for me, but for the people I care about? And that's when your actions shift. That's when you stop making excuses for poor habits. That's when you start thinking like the wealthy, not because you're greedy, but because you're responsible. Because you understand that money is not just for spending. It's a tool, a resource, a seed. And how you plant it daily will determine the harvest your family reaps for generations. I can remember when I finally grasped this. I was in a small apartment, barely making ends meet, and it hit me. No one was coming to rescue me. There was no windfall on the horizon. If I wanted a different future, I had to act differently daily. I started writing down everything I spent. I started saving, even if it was just $1. I started reading about wealth instead of wasting time on distractions. I began setting aside money for giving because I believe that generosity opens doors you can't imagine. And I stuck with those habits day in and day out. Not perfectly, I stumbled, of course. But I kept going. And you know what happened? Over time, those tiny daily choices built a completely different life. Not overnight, but steadily, predictably, powerfully. And here's the beautiful thing, you can do the same. You don't have to wait for a raise or an inheritance or a miracle. You start today. You decide, what habits will I practice that build my legacy? Maybe it's as simple as setting aside $5 a day. Maybe it's committing to reading one financial article each morning. Maybe it's teaching your kids how to budget their allowance. Maybe it's putting your giving first instead of last. Whatever it is, do it daily, because wealth isn't built by a single grand gesture. And remember this, the opposite is also true. If your daily habits are careless, if they're driven by impulse, if they're shaped by fear or laziness or short-term thinking, then you're not just holding yourself back, you're burying your legacy. You're teaching those who follow you to do the same. You're creating a culture of scarcity instead of abundance, of reaction instead of vision, and you deserve better than that. The people who look to you deserve better than that. So, if you want to change your financial future, don't look for some big breakthrough. Look at your habits, look at what you do each day without thinking, because that's what's shaping your destiny. Start small if you must. Start messy if you must. But start. Build habits that reflect the legacy you want to leave, and I promise that legacy will take shape one day at a time. One of the most overlooked, yet absolutely essential, pillars of building lasting wealth is something so simple, so practical, that many people ignore it until they're in trouble, and that is creating and maintaining an emergency fund. I want to talk about this because I've seen time and again how the absence of an emergency fund has destroyed people's dreams. No matter how hard they worked, no matter how disciplined they thought they were. And I've seen how having one has saved people's plans, protected their dignity, and kept their wealth-building journey on track when life threw them a curveball. You see, life doesn't always cooperate with our plans. Cars break down, jobs are lost, medical bills show up, roofs leak. And when that happens, and it will, you've got two choices. You can have a plan, or you can have a crisis. And the emergency fund is your plan. It's your financial cushion. It's the wall between you and panic. I like to say it's not just a fund, it's peace of mind sitting in an account, quietly standing guard over your goals, your family, your future. And it's not optional if you're serious about wealth. It's mandatory, because without it, you'll be tempted in a moment of stress to do the worst possible thing. Go into debt, sell off your investments, or break the systems you've worked so hard to build. And once you do that, it can take years to recover, if you recover at all. I remember early in my own journey when I didn't have an emergency fund. And I'll tell you, it wasn't because I couldn't afford to set one up. It was because I didn't think I needed one. I thought, I'll just work harder. I'll figure it out if something happens. That's the arrogance of someone who hasn't yet been tested by life's surprises. And sure enough, when that first surprise hit a medical bill, I didn't expect I had no choice but to borrow. And that debt felt like a chain. Every time I earned $1, I wasn't building wealth. I was paying for my lack of planning. And I learned the hard way that a dollar spent on interest is a dollar that can't build your future. It can't build your legacy. It just disappears, never to return. That was the day I decided, never again. And from that moment, I started setting aside a portion of everything I earned, not for spending, not for investing, not even for giving, but for protecting, for insulating myself from the unexpected. So how do you do it? You start simple. Aim to set aside 3 to 6 months of living expenses, not luxuries, not vacation essentials. What it costs to keep a roof over your head, food on the table, the lights on, and your life running. And you keep it somewhere safe, somewhere liquid, where you can access it fast if you need to, but where it doesn't tempt you every time you want a new gadget or a fancy dinner. This isn't play money. This is your safety net. And it's not about how fast you build it, it's about making it non-negotiable. Maybe you set aside $50 a week. Maybe it's $5. Maybe it's $500. The amount matters less than the discipline. The commitment to protect what you're building matters most. And here's something I want you to remember. The emergency fund isn't a sign of fear. It's a sign of strength. It means you're planning ahead. It means you're not leaving your future up to chance. It means you're thinking like the wealthy think, because wealthy people don't hope nothing goes wrong. They prepare for when it does. And because they prepare, the storms of life don't wipe them out. They might get wet, but they don't drown. The emergency fund lets you weather the storms without losing sight of the shore. It lets you keep your investments intact. It lets you keep your giving steady. It lets you sleep at night knowing that one unexpected bill won't undo years of hard work. I've seen people who were well on their way to financial success lose it all because they skipped this step. They built wealth on a shaky foundation. No emergency fund, no backup, no safety net. And when trouble came, and it always does, it all came crashing down. And I've seen others who didn't even earn that much stay steady and strong through job losses, health crises, family emergencies because they had this fund. They were ready. And that readiness gave them confidence. It gave them options. It gave them time to think, to choose wisely instead of making desperate decisions. So, if you're serious about wealth, and I believe you are, don't skip this. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Start today, even if it's small, even if it feels like a drop in the bucket, because those drops add up. And before you know it, you've built a wall of protection around your future, a wall that says, I am in charge. I am prepared. I am building wealth, and I'm not leaving it to luck. And when the storms come, and they will, you'll stand tall because you took the time to build your foundation first. Let me leave you with this final thought, one that I hope stays with you long after this moment. Wealth isn't something you stumble upon by accident. It isn't a matter of luck or chance or being in the right place at the right time. Wealth is built deliberately, thoughtfully, and consistently by those who decide that they will no longer leave their future in the hands of fate. It begins in the mind with the decision to think like the rich. And that decision changes everything. Because once you think differently, you act differently. And when you act differently, your results begin to change. Little by little at first, and then faster, until you look back and realize that you've become someone who not only earns money, but someone who commands it, directs it, and multiplies it. You see, what separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck isn't intelligence or talent. It's discipline. It's the daily choice to cut out excuses, to act on what you know, to take responsibility for every dollar and every decision. I want you to remember this. No one else will build your wealth for you. No government program, no employer, no relative. It's your job. And that's not a burden, it's a privilege. Because it means you hold the pen, you write the story, you decide how it ends. So I challenge you, right here, right now, choose to begin. Don't wait for Monday. Don't wait for the next paycheck. Don't wait for the economy to change. You change. Start with the small things. Live on less than you earn. Save before you spend. Learn something new about money this week. Put your dollars to work, not just your hands. Build that emergency fund. And above all, build yourself, because wealth flows to those who have grown into the kind of person who can handle it. Take this as your call to action. Take what you've heard today and turn it into movement, into decisions, into habits. And if you do, I promise you won't just make a living, you'll build a life. And that life will be rich in more ways than one.